Hello, bienvenidos. Welcome. This is the Precairo podcast. I'm with Dr. Carlos Givers today out in Spain. Thank you so much for taking some time to share with any student that's out there considering this path of chiropractic and maybe becoming a chiropractor. So, can we get started, Dr. Carlos, with you sharing a little bit about your upbringing and how you decided to become a chiropractor?
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. It's really an honor to be here. It's been a little tough to arrange each other's schedules around around the time that worked for both of us, but it's finally great to be here, and I'm really I feel honored to be able to speak to hopefully future chiropractic students and future colleagues eventually. I must say that I have breathed chiropractic since ever since I was born. My dad was a chiropractor. He was one of the first chiropractors here in Spain, and he brought in a lot of passion to the profession, and was one of the five chiropractors who created the Spanish association, the Spanish Chiropractic Association, that was born in 1986 exactly. Actually, at my house's living room. I know that the first general assemblies and meetings were held around the same table where we had dinner at that time. So that's how it all started. My older sister, Evelyn, went on to follow my dad's steps, and she decided to go study chiropractic at Life West. Then a couple years later, I decided to follow her paths too. She was so motivated, so excited every time she came back for the summer break or the Christmas break, and it was just impossible not to get somehow. It was contagious, not to get as motivated as she was. And I think you, Benjamin, went to school, or somehow also Tatiana, my younger sister, who also decided to become a chiropractor. Actually, there's four of us in the family, and only one of my sisters, because there's three of them, one of them did not become a chiropractor. And we always think that eventually she will become one. So it's something that runs in the blood. It runs in our veins, and we've always lived, I would say, a chiropractic way of life, and we've always been very inspired by our father. Although he never shared too much when he came at home about what is it that he was doing, we just knew he was successful. He was happy. He would make people better. He would make people healthy. I'm saying this because a lot of people, when I went to Life West, they were asking me, "Oh, you must know so much about chiropractic because of your dad." And it's like, no, he was actually pretty reserved, and it was just going through school that I learned to love what he was doing. He was just an inspirational model, just because of the way he related to his profession. It was just pure passion in his profession, and that's the most contagious thing. And actually, it is a gift, I think. Being able to do something every day that you're passionate about, it's something that I'd say most people don't find in their lives, and it is something that it's worth so much, so much. It's a treasure.
Yes.
Yeah.
As chiropractors, we give so much. So to hear that your dad was more reserved, I believe that when you give so much, that when you go home to your family after serving in the practice all day, that it's easy for you to just be reserved and not be continuing to promote and put out so much energy, because it is very it takes a lot to really serve people at a high level, which I'm sure if your dad was passionate and inspired about chiropractic, he was bringing it all with him and kind of like leaving it all on the table at the office. Can you share a little bit about what you naturally gravitated towards? From what I've heard or read, you're interested in the sciences and research, currently studying your PhD. So can you talk a little bit about what your chiropractic student experience was like, and just reflect back on that, please?
Yeah. Of course, yeah. My father was a Gonstead practitioner. He practiced Gonstead. He saw patients one on one, but he had a very busy practice. There were some times where he was seeing 50 to 60 patients a day, and he was working 6 days a week. He would work on the weekends in the north of Spain, in Bilbao. So, as you say, exactly as you say, he came home, and I get a feeling that he really didn't want to talk about chiropractic anymore. He just gave so much of his energy. But anyway, going back to the point, I think he did get some of these passion through us. And when we went to study chiropractic, I think all of us, my two sisters and I, we were searching for that. We didn't really know how, but we were searching for that same type of satisfaction and passion. As you said, I naturally gravitated more towards the science. I remember we reopened. My roommate and I reopened the neurology club at Life West. That was had been shut down for a few years. It just wasn't working, and we held the meetings for about a year and a half. Many times it was just him and I going over. I don't know if you probably had a Dr. Stratton as a teacher, so going over some of his notes, going over the pathways, and really getting into the how. How does chiropractic work? Because I think you get to a point where if you've lived chiropractic for so long, you know it works. You just want to know, okay, how does it work? So that's what's really always got me. Okay, what is behind the adjustment? What happens in the nervous system, specifically, much more than the biomechanics, which are also fascinating. But I've always been very interested about the neurology of it, neurology of the adjustment, and always very fascinated by the work of Dan Murphy. I think it was the only class I was there 7:25 a.m. whenever it happened. And right now I still teach neurology at the college in Madrid. That's the class I enjoy the most. And it's been now 2 years and a half that I started my PhD in neuroscience. I'm studying pain neurosciences, just how pain is processed in the brain. And specifically, we want to know what happens when we adjust somebody that changes the pain neurophysiology. It's, I know some chiropractors, specifically being from Life West, I know some people can even be a bit allergic when you talk about pain, but it's just the best reflection of what we do, not because it's what the chiropractic adjustment was designed to do, but this is what people look for when they come to see us. And actually, we know that it works in most cases, or in many cases of pain in the back, pain in the spine, patients get better, but we really don't know how it happens. So this is what I'm dedicating now my research on, trying to investigate mechanisms in the brain and the spinal cord related to the chiropractic adjustment. And I'm very young into research. Haven't published any paper on this subject yet. I have two that are on the final stages. One of them was submitted, but they're under review. So that's my current state of work.
So you work at the Madrid Chiropractic College, and we're going to unpack that in a few moments. But can you go deeper into the neuroscience of pain and what some of the papers that you've submitted are, like from more of a detailed perspective, just to give people a depth of insight into the mindset of what you're really, where you're at today in 2020 and regarding to what you're researching?
So the first paper I submitted, it's been a month or so. We have to make some changes that were requested by the reviewers. It's actually a review on the mechanisms of spinal manipulation or the chiropractic adjustment, on the mechanisms of pain. So where is it acting? And we can see through the literature that there are clearly at least three locations or three ways that the adjustment can modify the way that the body perceives perceives pain and modulates pain. One of them is at the periphery. So we know that there's a few studies suggesting that the adjustment creates neuroimmune interactions, which are very relevant, and they're really on the focus right now, because we know that some neuroimmune biomarkers that we call cytokines, inflammatory cytokines, can be changed after a period or even after a single spinal manipulation. In particular, there's been a few studies dedicated to looking at interleukins, interleukin 6, interleukin 2, interleukin 10 also. Well, those seem to change or may change with the adjustment. But most of the studies are looking at what happens in the spinal cord. And these are more segmental mechanisms. So the gate control theory of pain that we've all heard of. So if your patient has a L5 nerve root issue, you have more chances of making him better by adjusting L5. This is something that we see in the practice, but the research is not 100%. But there's a lot suggesting that this is how many of the effects are happening. And there's a lot of very cool recent evidence on how the spinal manipulation or the chiropractic adjustment changes the way that the brain processes pain. This is what really fascinates me the most. There's a few studies with PET. We have around 6 or 7 good studies with fMRI, functional MRI, that show changes on specific brain areas that are usually processing pain, but they're also related to other stuff. For example, we have some limbic areas involved. We have the cerebellum involved. We have some prefrontal areas involved that change the way they process pain after a single spinal manipulation. So this is pretty powerful because it could actually mean that eventually we might be able to show that the actual adjustment, with or without pain, might have the ability to change brain activity. We're still not there, but some good evidence suggests that this is possible. Mm-hmm. Myself, my main project for the PhD, we did actually EEG. We recorded brain activity in people receiving a chiropractic adjustment under 4 conditions. We were using capsaicin on these people's back. I don't know if you know, capsaicin is what makes the hot peppers hot, what makes them spicy. Mm-hmm. And we know that this simulates what happens when people are under chronic pain, which could be many types of chronic pain. Even capsaicin is used, for example, for visceral pain also. Mm. But, capsaicin stimulates the C nociceptors, the C fibers, in a way that changes the spinal cord architecture and the function of the spinal cord. Mm. So we saw some changes after the adjustment. I cannot unveil those yet to you because we're analyzing the latest results, but we wanted to see if there were changes in the spinal cord activity and in the brain activity. We found more changes on the spinal cord, but it's still early. So this is, I hope it wasn't too much science for
no, absolutely. Everybody's going to be attracted to different things, and being a scientist is part of being a chiropractor, no matter who you are. And at the same time, right. I want to go a little deeper just so that people can see what's going on in your mind. You're a researcher now. You've been in practice in the past. You're also teaching students in school. So can you talk, let's shift focus to the Madrid Chiropractic College. Talk about the history of the school and a little bit about just some of the basics that a prospective student is going to want to learn about when they're looking at this school.
There's a very cool story about this school, actually, because in, I believe it was 1992, there was a European Chiropractors Union convention in Spain, in Marbella, which is in the south of Spain near Malaga. And I believe it was that year. I know that either 92 or 91, 93, Sid Williams, which was the founder of Life, he flew over to Madrid with his private jet, and he came to visit this same school, the one that we're set at right now. And he wanted to open a branch of Life University in Spain. And this school is actually, it's a small university that is attached to the largest university in Spain, that's in Madrid. So this is a small one in the mountains. It's a very beautiful place, historic buildings. Sid loved it. He wanted to make things happen here, but the current administration of the college, of the university here, they decided it was not the best moment. They had a lot of students. They didn't have enough space. They couldn't invest in what was necessary to invest at the moment. So they just let it go. And it wasn't until 2006 that through different contacts, again, the Spanish Chiropractic Association, I wasn't involved at that time, but they contacted again the same university. And they said, hey, we're still interested in creating a chiropractic program here. There was nothing in Spain at the time. And the school wasn't so successful. This university had lost a few of their students. They have nothing to do with healthcare sciences. They historically have been teaching economy, business administration, law, so more in the arts. But they decided that it was a good time to invest because the other careers, the other programs weren't doing so well. So they decided to go ahead and, let's say, risk it. We got some funding from the European Chiropractors Union. The Spanish Association supported this project, although it was a bit turbulent at the time. But it ended up happening, and we opened the doors in 2007. One of the reasons why this happened is because why it wasn't so easy It's because we got the support of the Anglo-European College of Chiropractic, I am super grateful for the help. It was not easy because I would say 95% of the chiropractors in Spain, at least at the time, they consider themselves very vitalistic, and they didn't like the idea, oh, this ACC school, they're mechanistic, they're not going to teach chiropractic the way we want it. And it was a big mistake, honestly, because the way that chiropractic is taught really depends on the teachers. And apart from that, in my opinion, the division between mechanistic and vitalistic chiropractic is a stupid one. That's just my opinion. But at the time, it was proven that the teachers were the ones who were giving the philosophy and the focus to the program. So most of our teachers are, we have 25 teachers, about a third of them are chiropractors, but the rest, just like in any other college, they're medical doctors, they're psychologists, we're teaching anatomy, we're teaching psychology. But the bottom line is that they're all super open to chiropractic. They all either are patients or send patients. Some of them have sent their daughters or sons to study chiropractic. So we have a good faculty. And the faculty is very supportive of chiropractic and very supportive of the program. Mm-hmm. It's a small program. Mm-hmm. We only have 13 years of history, but we've been growing up until recently. The last few years have been a little bit more difficult because of some political issues that we've had in Spain. We can go over it a little bit in more detail later. Mm-hmm. But overall, we are a small program with not many students per class. Our average has always been between 15 and 20 students, so small groups, very individualized attention, very individualized education, strong focus on the techniques. This is one of the things that I think is one of our assets. Our technique instructors are very proficient and very based on what is called the Palmer package, which is very similar to what we got taught at Life West. Just an overall view of all the techniques without any strong focus on one specific system. We don't want people to be just gonjoids, but we want them to know about Gonstead. Like, we want them to know what is the history, the way he thought, and also how we can apply Gonstead to nowadays. Mm-hmm. So a very strong focus on the technique and a very strong focus on neurology. I think those are the two, I would say, two hallmarks of our product and of our graduates as well. They're good adjusters and they know very well their neurology.
Mm-hmm. And when people graduate from the program, do they typically stick around Spain, or are they internationals that will return to the country that they traveled from to study there? Or can you describe a little of the demographic and the makeup of the student body?
So we started with mostly locals, Spanish students, mostly. I think the first cohort maybe had I think we graduated 28 students. I believe we had maybe 2 French students or 1 Italian, 2 French, something like that. But most of our graduates at the beginning were from Spain. These evolved, and eventually we've even had some cohorts with more international students than national students. Quite a few French students, Italians, obviously there are neighbor countries, a few Portuguese. Lately it's been a bit more diversified, and specifically because the number of new students from Spain has been decreasing both here and in Barcelona in the last few years. Barcelona has always had a much stronger focus on international students. It wasn't the case for us. This is just something that has been evolving on the last few years. And I believe right now we have around 40% of our students that are international. So it's pretty balanced. Mm-hmm. And so international students, it depends. The French students tend to stay in Spain. They like Spain. Also, they do have to accredit 2 years of practice before they go back to France. But most of them stay even longer than that. The Italian students tend to go back to Italy. International students tend to go back, except for the French, I would say.
Okay. What would you describe as like some of the best types of students for your program? Students that will be prepared to meet the challenges, because the program, I imagine, is not easy. Can you just describe some advice, provide some advice on what you would give to a student considering entering the program, and also talk to them a little of the student life, the culture within the school?
So that's a very good question, especially because the programs in Europe are different from the programs in the US. In general, here it's an integrated 5-year program. You don't have to do an undergrad. You don't have to do a chiropractic type of program. You just go directly after high school. You can. You have that option when you're 18 and you finish your high school. You obtain your high school degree, you can directly enter the chiropractic program. So everything is integrated into 5 years, which means that during this 5-year length, you're adjusting or at least setting up after the second year, so pretty quickly. And you're also learning some neurology and neurophysiology on the second year. So this is pretty typical of the European programs. It's in general 5 years that are structured under, how would you call that? Like a bachelor plus a master's. Mm-hmm. So that's the way it's structured. Usually the master's corresponds to the years you're in clinic. 1 or 2 years that you're in clinic. That depends. In our case, it's 4 years for a bachelor. The fourth year, you're already in the clinic, but it's just a student clinic, or where you can see fellow students, or also you can bring in friends, family to get adjusted. And then you start with outpatients on the 5th year. That corresponds to the master's year. I think that the first year is very fair. It's not very difficult. It's a very good introduction. I teach palpation at that year. It's a pretty intense class because it's 5 hours. We do palpation, not just obviously spine palpation, which is most of the class, but we also start with extremities. We palpate muscles. We palpate ligaments. So we really try to develop skills on palpation at every level. And the first year is already very practical. So it's a very good introduction. Then second, third, and fourth year are pretty tough. That's where most of the basic and clinical sciences come in. There's a lot of, just like I think in any other program, more and more presentations that you have to do, more and more assignments, not so much based on finals, but just a constant ongoing evaluation, which is, I think, more fair, but also tougher for a student.
Mm-hmm. And what types of people are the fourth year clinical students? What types of people are they working with? How are you giving that clinical training, or how are you giving students opportunities to take care of people under your guidance over at the school?
So the clinic on the fourth year is very very hands-on and very, I would say, very one-on-one with the students. We take really 1 full hour to do one adjustment, which doesn't mean that's what it takes to do the adjustment, but sometimes it takes a few trials. It takes a very good setup. It takes a good palpation. So they've been learning that before, but because these are already, let's say, real patients to come see them, we try to make the best of these adjustments. And at the same time, we know that these patients are either classmates or roommates or a family member. So we feel enough at ease that we can take a full hour just to do, let's say, a C7, a T5, and an L5. Mm-hmm. I like that. This is something that I didn't get quite at Life West, because I think we were expected to have these skills earlier. But they do learn a lot during this year. It's not such a real environment that you were asking also that, because many of these patients don't really have complaints. They come just for wellness or for prevention. They're easy to adjust, as most students are, a bit hypermobile also. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it doesn't get real until the beginning of the 5th year. It doesn't get really real. Mm-hmm. The 5th year, instead of being 9 months, that's usually the length of an academic year, it goes on for a full 12 months. So it starts in July and it finishes at the end of June of the following year. Mm-hmm. We have, I think, very similar requirements to most places. They have to do 400 adjustments, 40 new patients. So it's that's when it gets real. One of the biggest challenges for our students is to find their own patients. I must say that this is a big difference compared to the US. I think this is a weakness that we have here in Spain, or at least in our college. Somehow they don't have the skill to go out to the street and talk to people, or go to the bread shop and say, hey, I'm a chiropractic intern, here's my card, come see me. I feel like this is one of the weaknesses that I don't know if our program or our mentality in Spain has for the clinic training year. I don't know if you had that experience, but I remember at Life West, we had to, I maybe obtained 1 or 2 patients from the list at the clinic. The
Well,
rest of
I'll just share that I'm from New York and I'm used to talking to people on the street with no reservations. So I was comfortable just walking up to people, but I recognize that's not the norm. That's not common. So pre-Chiro, the way that I'm establishing this pre-Chiro program is to really educate people that before you even start chiropractic school or as you're going through chiropractic school, there's a supplemental curriculum that you need to recognize is important for your success long term. And one of those is being able to communicate effectively what chiropractic is, who you are, knowing who you are, and having that entrepreneurial spirit that you recognize you need to go out and create situations that can help you educate people and can help you connect with people in your community. So I'm right there with you. I don't think it's unique to your program. You could say it's a weakness, but I would venture to say that every chiropractic program needs more awareness amongst students before they're even getting into school that this is a part of being a chiropractor.
Yeah. You made a very good point, and I do believe that there is something cultural as well. Just consider that healthcare in Europe in general, definitely in Spain, is let's say 90% is public, which means that people are not used to have to develop these type of skills when they go into a healthcare profession. Particularly when we speak about mainstream healthcare, so medical doctors, they will eventually work at public hospitals. They'll get more than enough patients. They probably will get more patients than they want, and they, in general, don't have to even think about these type of skills, which is a mistake when you talk about chiropractic. First of all, because chiropractic is yet to be recognized in Spain; it's not legally recognized, and also because even if it is, in most countries, chiropractors tend to work in a private clinic. So you absolutely need to develop these skills if you want to become a successful chiropractor. And at least you said the most important one is to be able to properly communicate chiropractic. I think if you can communicate that with passion, then that definitely adds an extra element that will make you even more successful, but at least to be able to communicate well chiropractic. Yeah, it's essential.
Absolutely. And yeah, so can we just go deeper now into your involvement with getting chiropractic more recognition as being a licensed profession or a profession that is a valuable credential? Because I think that one of the key pieces with pre-Chiro is that we want to create a certain standard that before a chiropractic student enters into a program that they've met a certain standard, like the admissions tests that medical programs have create something that is somewhat of a goal for students. And I think that what your involvement with the Spain Chiropractic Association or Spanish Chiropractic Association, what you guys are fighting for is a certain level of standard or quality of standards. Can you talk a little bit about what your involvement's been with the association and what you look forward to in the future?
Yeah, thanks. It's a great point. It's very important for anybody who plans on either coming to study or eventually practicing chiropractic in Spain. Let me say this to start with. I think practicing chiropractic in Spain is really, it is a great option. There's a great future for chiropractic in Spain, even though we still have zero legal recognition. So chiropractic is not legal, it's also not illegal in Spain. It has never been, which also means that that's not just the profession itself, the practice of chiropractic, but also the education. So chiropractic education is not legalized in any way, it's not recognized by the government in any way. Interestingly, both programs, Madrid and Barcelona, have an accreditation by the European Council on Chiropractic Education, the CCE in Europe. So we're both accredited, which means that, for example, we've had graduates who went to practice to the UK and they can actually take their licensing exams or procedures that they have to do, and they can be fully legally licensed in the UK, for example. well, the UK is not a great example because they're moving out of the EU right now, but pretty much any other country in Europe. But in Spain, what happens is that these are not required, and actually a chiropractic degree is not even required. Anybody can call themselves a chiropractor. That's the biggest issue. So you will see many times patients will come see you and they say, "Oh, I have a chiropractor," and "Oh, who is he?" Well, he's actually my gym instructor, or sometimes he's like, "Oh, he's my Pilates instructor," and he told me he's also a chiropractor. So nobody who is a chiropractor and a Pilates instructor will just adjust people after a Pilates session or whatever. That's just not happening. So you can immediately recognize how many of these people are just trained over the weekends, or sometimes not even they've been watching some videos and then just popping people's necks and doing pseudo adjustments. That's the biggest danger, and that's what we've been trying to let the administration know. They have not been very open to listen, honestly, because we've had an important opposition on behalf of the Physical Therapy Association, let's say the national association, which is called the Colegio. It's like the College of Physical Therapists in Spain. They are very opposed to chiropractors and to chiropractic being recognized, because they claim that chiropractic is a manual therapy that only they can practice. So they've been claiming that for a long time. They actually have been suing some chiropractors, and every time they've sued a chiropractor, they've lost. Every single time. And we had one case recently. This was he came out, when was it? I don't even remember when he came out, but just a few months ago, I think in February or March. Mm-hmm. And we won again. They lost again, and I don't know if they're going to continue following that path, but they are fully recognized and we're not, which is why they use the legal strategies and the legal tools to try to stop us from becoming a recognized profession.
What do you think needs to happen for chiropractic to gain that certain level of legitimacy? What can international chiropractors do to support chiropractors in Spain, or what do chiropractors specifically living in Spain need to do to differentiate the profession from physical therapy and differentiate the profession from? When I was in Spain, I saw Chiro massage. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but what needs to happen? I'm sure that you're clear on what needs to happen. It just hasn't happened because there's obviously, like you said, opposition.
It's a very good question. I honestly don't have the answer. It's a very specific country with very specific with particularities, with the specificities that make it difficult for new professions to move forward. This said, the first step was definitely to create a chiropractic education locally. We now have 2 colleges. They are going well. They have been graduating very good chiropractors who have not been in trouble. This is also important. So who have a very good reputation. And the first necessary step, at least the way that the the Spanish legal system works, is that the educational programs get recognized. So we first need a recognition for the educational programs. This is not so difficult, but it has been. It has been very difficult. BCC has had a very important support from the UPF, which is a very powerful university in Barcelona. And I don't know if they did, but they were about to lose the support from UPF recently, which is a bummer. I hope they didn't. We have had the support of the Complutense, the large university in Madrid, but we had it just at the beginning, then we lost their support. Again, mainly for the same reasons. Physical therapists have been there and they've been saying, "Oh, these guys are not real healthcare professionals." So we need to be ahead of their game. We need to show that our training is a good, it has a good level of training, that our education is probably, I don't want to say this, but this is the truth. We have a higher level of education than physical therapists. We have more credits and more years. We have to show that our science is also backing what chiropractors can do, at least for spinal conditions, without getting into, let's say visceral conditions and stuff. Okay, chiropractors are good for spinal conditions. We're experts in the spine, And something that you said is very important. We have to be able to show that we offer a service that's not offered by other professionals. That what we do is not something that the physios can do, that the osteopaths can do, that the medical doctors can do. And I don't know if this is very clear to chiropractors, but this should be. This is why I brought in spinal conditions. I believe that chiropractors are the healthcare professionals that know best the spine. They know best the spine, the biomechanics of the spine, and the influence of these on the nervous system. I don't like to say, I mean, I would love to say that chiropractors are experts in the nervous system, but I teach neurology. I have so many friends that are chiropractors, and we tend to not be as good as we think we are regarding neurology. So this is another thing that I believe might help us in the future, which is improving our knowledge base in neurology, neurological sciences, neurophysiology. If we want to make a distinction between what we do and what everybody else does. At the end, it goes back to what Didi Palmer said at the beginning. You know, chiropractors, we deal with the spine and how the spine influences the nervous system. That's it. There's no mystery. Yes, okay, we can talk about the innate, whatever. Great. Nothing against that, but that should be just amongst us, I believe. When we're talking to the public, when we're talking to the authorities, when we're talking science, we should improve our skills and demonstrate our knowledge on the spine and the nervous system. This is my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, I hear where you're coming from with being like a primary spine provider, that we have more education in the spine than anyone else and its relationship to the nervous system. I guess my question is, so my hope is with Precairo is that we attract a wider diversity of professionals to become chiropractors that are maybe already PhDs or maybe already professionals from backgrounds that can be very helpful to furthering the profession. Because not to say that a student right out of college with no credentials isn't as valuable as, say, a PhD entering into a chiropractic program. But if we did have more, say, policy change professionals, people in the public health sector entering a chiropractic program and looking at it through that lens, or if we had more PhD researchers, my real question is, how would we use them? What would we be gaining by having more sort of support from different places in furthering the legitimacy and bolstering the value of this profession? Because a lot of what I've heard you describe, it just sounds like we've been given this resistance almost at times for no other reason except for that it's easy for the opposition to just make claims and not be sort of overpowered by the amount of strength in our profession, that our profession is weak because there's differing beliefs or there's differing viewpoints, but regardless, we don't have people on the offensive. We're always on the defensive. So what kinds of questions would you say young researchers or young people in chiropractic politics, not even young, but just fresh energy, what are some new ways that we can approach furthering the profession? If you were to just get creative in how you're thinking about it, or I'm sure you've had so many conversations and had insights that you were like, yeah, if we just did that, or maybe there's 3 or 4 different ways that we can really bridge this gap of expanding chiropractic to a level that it hasn't reached in the past.
Yeah. Again, very relevant. And I think you're right regarding that we tend to be on the defensive side, and we are not always very comfortable on the offensive side. I would disagree regarding attracting. I mean, it's great if we can attract, obviously, people with public health degrees and PhDs to become chiropractors. But what I believe is one of our weaknesses is that chiropractors tend not to want to continue their education after they become a chiropractor. I understand why, because as a chiropractor, you can work with your hands. You have a big debt if you're studied in the US particularly. And you know you can be successful, you can pay for your loans, and you can have a good life just by being a practitioner, which is great. Nothing against that, but we need not just practitioners. We need researchers, we need policymakers, we need people into public health, we need people working for the World Health Organization. And there's a long list of needs that the profession has that other professions do have, not because they are more interested into research or policy making, but because there are many more physical therapists or many more or of probably any other healthcare professional compared to chiropractors. So it's easier for them to just find people who eventually will be interested into changing policy or doing research. So I think that I wish that the younger generations of chiropractors can find the usefulness and the beauty also and the passion into becoming policymakers or influencing policies, politicians getting involved in politics, and definitely getting involved in research. This is key. We need these young minds to bring up new ways of thinking. We need new research questions. For example, I'm sure many researchers will disagree with me, but I think we should be already over the whole low back pain debate. We know that spinal manipulation is good for low back pain, can help in both chronic and acute phases, and doing more randomized controlled trials is probably not going to change a lot what we call the effect sizes. So, spinal manipulation is a great tool for these patients, but what else? What's more important than this? I mean, one of the questions that I ask myself all the time, I told you before, is how does chiropractic work? How can we help patients, for example, with chronic pain? Because we know that during chronic pain, there are changes in the central nervous system in the way we process nociception. There is an increase, let's put it simple, there is an increase in efficiency in the synapses between nociceptive neurons. So the pain system is enhanced, let's say, during chronic pain. And if chiropractors using spinal manipulation can help these patients, this means that with our adjustments, there is a potential for us to change these synapses and this synaptic efficacy in the nociceptive system. So again, the chiropractic adjustments might have specific effects on the central nervous system. We need to explore a lot more. We know nothing about this. We really know nothing about this. I believe that animal studies are really lacking in chiropractic. There's a lot of models that we can use. Obviously, I have a lot of people who tell me, oh, manipulating an animal is not the same as adjusting a patient that has this specific fixation or what's. Yes, of course not, but it will unveil some of the mechanisms, some of how it works. And there are many things that you can do with the animals that you cannot do, obviously, with humans. And you can find out things that change in blood markers, blood biomarkers, things that change in the brain, in the spinal cord. You can record specific neural units. You can record specific afferent activity to see what happens, not just in the nociceptive system, but, for example, how that could influence the sympathetic nervous system. There's a lot of preliminary data, but we don't have enough data in that sense. Mm-hmm. We're into the mechanisms, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I'm not in love with the clinical research in chiropractic in general, but I believe there is another area where we need to improve a lot, which is how to link the clinical studies with the data that is interesting for politicians. So how can chiropractors, for example, help patients to reduce or help the system to reduce healthcare costs, for example? Mm-hmm. How can chiropractors improve function way beyond pain? Improve function, which is essential to reduce disability, to reduce healthcare costs, to reduce costs from sick leaves, for example. Cost effectiveness. We don't have enough studies on cost effectiveness. It's been a long time that we don't renew the studies that were done 20 years ago. There's a very interesting line that's been developed in the last few years on how chiropractic care can decrease opioid consumption and opioid prescription. I think that's fascinating because we're really talking about saving lives in that case. Okay. So that's, I think, a very good way to enter also the political system and show a benefit for the healthcare system in general, and even reducing maybe fatality rates from things like opioid overdoses and etc. So I think this is also very innovative. This is already underway, and there's a lot of good research coming in that direction. Sorry about that. Let me just.
No worries. Yeah.
So that we don't get any distraction.
No worries.
Done.
So I guess my question is, there's a lot of money circulating in the world. For example, Real Madrid is like a couple $100 million company and organization. And
Yeah.
supposedly, I think every football team in Spain has a chiropractor on their staff. So they obviously value the profession, they value the service. Let's just say that $10 million was donated towards chiropractic for research, for policy change. Um, is it more of a money issue, or is it more of that we don't have enough chiropractors that are trained in these specialized skills, or that we don't have enough infrastructure developed so that we have clinical laboratories to do these studies? What is it that needs to come together? Is it a number of things? Like, my point is if you don't have a goal that we're setting that we want to try and aim for, like we want $10 million because we're going to use it in these ways, then we're never going, we're going to keep spinning our wheels with people that are coming at us and being on the defensive. I guess my question is like, if you were to be given 10 million or 100 million, how many different providers would we need to be involved? How many researchers would we need to have involved? I heard one time that we need 10 studies on one thing proving it, not just one study. So what is really required to drive policy change? Have you been able to see any successes, maybe not in Spain, but just worldwide, in regards to maybe what the physical therapists have been able to do, or even the chiropractors, in regards to, okay, they have to present this amount of studies to these organizations, and they need this amount of money to do those studies, and they need this amount of people to conduct those studies? Like, what do we need in regards to infrastructure?
I don't have enough experience to answer this question honestly, but I can give you my take on this. I think that the limitation is manifold. I mean, it's not just the amount of researchers that are involved. We have excellent researchers that are involved in chiropractic research that are not chiropractors, and we should and we are using them, but we should use them even more. We have psychologists, we have biologists, we have people who are studying biomechanics, we have medical doctors and physical therapists who are studying alongside chiropractors and doing excellent work. We definitely need more chiropractors, just because if we want a research agenda that is relevant to the chiropractic profession, we need some chiropractic researchers that get involved, at least in the design, and not just in the design, but also in the making of some of these studies. The money is an issue, of course. We don't have a huge industry backing us. We don't prescribe anything. We've maybe prescribed some orthotics, and then we've had food levelers as sponsors for many of the big organizations like the World Federation of Chiropractic, or what's the name? Anyway, nutritional products as well, standard process, for example. But
Right.
still, these are not the things that most chiropractors are prescribing. So we don't have and they're not huge industries anyway. So we don't have that capacity. We will never be able to reach the same level as, for example, medical doctors. I remember being in a congress in Barcelona, 2018. It was a Eurospine Congress, which is the main congress of the European Spinal Society, so the Society for the Studies of the Spine. And you won't believe the amount of money that was there, just on huge companies like Siemens, Sony, who were creating robots for the surgeons to do their spine surgery and stuff. And what was dedicated to practitioners like us was not even close to 1% of the booth, and definitely not even close to 1% of the money. So we cannot compete at that level. So I do think that we can. We have a big asset, which is we're very close to our patients. We can generate a lot of great data from our offices. We see a lot of patients, chiropractors, and we influence many aspects of life. Very often starting with a pain relief, but pain relief leads to function, leads to improvements in sleep, etc. So we can measure so many things in our patients that we're not doing. I think one of the greatest advantages that we're missing is using clinic-driven data. So clinicians can create and can bring a lot of data that this would be a treasure for any researchers. We could publish so much stuff that would be relevant for us to understand what we're doing, for our patients to understand why they need to see chiropractors, and also for policymakers. And then, as you said, it wouldn't be enough with just one study. We need to publish a few studies and see if this is something that we can repeat, that we can recreate elsewhere. Otherwise, if you cannot recreate the results, it means that this was probably just a random effect that we're measuring. Mm-hmm. I think you're not too wrong by saying that, yeah, you need a few studies, around 10 studies that are showing the same result. Then hopefully you can pull that into a meta-analysis. And with the meta-analysis, you can say, oh, there is an effect on this. So imagine chiropractic can improve patients' sleep duration and quality of sleep. But that'll be a great finding, and it could be very interesting, especially, for example, now in this period of our lives where everyone is so stressed and freaked out about what's going on, and people are showing higher levels of anxiety, difficulty sleeping. Anyway, designing a full agenda is a tough one, but I think that using clinicians' data would be very, very important. And I'm not very sure about working with, you mentioned the Real Madrid, and I'm honestly a bit disappointed regarding the data on let's say, athletic performance, because we have a lot of anecdotal evidence. We all know that most, for example, football teams in the US use chiropractors, not so much in Spain, but we know that throughout Europe this happens a lot. We know that Usain Bolt used chiropractic, and that many big athletes relied on their chiropractors, but we have not been able to create good data in that sense. There's no good data on chiropractic and athletic performance. And this is a huge, huge area that we should exploit, because it's interesting, maybe not so much for policymakers, but for teams that have loads of money, and that would open the door for chiropractors to be part of the team, to maybe lead the team, and definitely to make a change in a society. Mm-hmm. So this is somewhere that still needs to be explored a lot.
Mm-hmm. A lot. Well, I think we need to build a culture for research, a research-based culture where when you go to chiropractic school, you're well aware that there's a certain part of the student body that is there because they believe that this evidence-based approach to healthcare is important, and they want to learn how not only to deliver the best quality care they can, but also how to measure it and how to use that data to build research that furthers how people engage with their healthcare or engage in life in general by using chiropractic. So now I hear you. I just think that the concept of Precairo is really that if I'm able to communicate with students before they go to chiropractic school, what do I want to plant the seed? Where do I want to plant seeds? And I want to plant seeds everywhere. I want to tell them explore everything and find what is attractive to you. And if they can hear conversations like this and hear that we need more research, or that we need that practitioners really get to work closely with their patients and that they have an opportunity to contribute to research. I just think that we need to build models that incentivize the provider to maybe be compensated for their contributions, and that can come from money that's maybe donated from a team or a club that has an extra $1 million or $2 million laying around that they want to support this profession.
That'd be great. That would be a great opportunity. I don't know if you're aware that this kind of happened in Italy. Not exactly like that, but a great chiropractor in Italy, Jean-Pierre Mersman, he became the lead, the lead physician for the AC Milan, which is one of the top 3 soccer clubs in the whole of Italy. So he was the lead. He's a chiropractor, and he was the lead physician for the medical team for many years, and he was able to get a lot of the money donated from the club to do a lot of research that unfortunately did not come out of the Milan lab. This is how it was called, but it was very, very helpful into not just treating the players, but most importantly to prevent injuries. And this was very successful for many years. The model was copied by other teams, and unfortunately, eventually the owners of the club changed, and this stopped. But it has happened, and it was very, very successful in Italy.
Did
So
that clinical trial get published? Did the work that he did with that team find the journal?
as far as I know of, it didn't. It didn't. And he brought to the club a very basic idea for chiropractors, which was to integrate that health and also prevention of injury was based on the three dimensions that we're always looking at as chiropractors. So the psychological aspect, the biomechanical aspect, and the biochemical aspect. Mm-hmm. And if you consider those three, so if your players are eating healthier and they have a healthier mind and they're moving well, then you probably will be able to prevent injuries and they will last longer and they will perform better. And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but I believe nothing was published, which is a shame because this is invaluable data. So hopefully we will do better in the future. I'm sure we will do better in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carlos, thank you so much for your time this morning. I have to run, but I will let you know once this has been trimmed down so that it can be shared with anyone who's considering studying at Madrid Chiropractic College. Have a beautiful day. It was great to meet you.
Great. Thank you so much. It was great meeting you too. This actually went by flying. So anytime, if I can help any other time, just come in. Thanks,
excellent. Man. Excellent. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. Adios.